This episode of Broken Bones and Bullshit is sponsored by Ozcan Rule. My next guest is Brian Duggan. This is the second time on the podcast. He was episode 3, I believe, and he's won Bull Riding Australian title and some local sort of association.
Yeah, just some circuit titles,
Yep.
CRCA, and a few of those around this area. So, yeah.
And you had a bit of success in America, but just couldn't really keep healthy.
Yeah. Back in those days, it was had a few dramas, medical like injuries and stuff like that. But no, we had a good time. So
Yeah. So if anyone's missed out on it, more about Duggo's career was in the first episode. This time we're going to be talking a lot about the history of breeding and bloodlines and that in buck and bulls in Australia. So we'll start it off with, how did you start with cattle?
Well, when we started out riding, there was no practice pens. There wasn't bulls to get on, so you had to have your own. So me and a few of my mates, we started getting a few steers together and then a few young bulls, and it just progressed from there. So sort of always had bulls around us right from the very beginning, and I guess that really helped our careers a lot back in those younger days, because we had opportunities to practice.
Yeah, you can roll them in. And
Yeah, and had a lot of bulls over the years. We wrecked a lot of bulls, and we made a few. To learn from your mistakes over the years, and you pick up some tricks of the trade to help to keep bulls bucking or make bulls bucks. It's been a long time.
I love that story about you had that buck and bull of the year unridden, and then he won his title, and then the next year someone stuck it on him.
Yeah.
And then he couldn't buck worth a shit after that.
Yeah, no. Junkyard dog. He was the second junkyard dog we had. He was just a scrub bull from out around Blackwater there, but he run wild out on the mine sites out there. We got him, and he went for, I guess, 12, 18 months, probably closer to 2 years, and he was unridden and threw off all the top cowboys, and he went for that long, not getting warmed up much, that when he did get rode, Michael Cordingley, ABC champ from up north, he stuck him at the finals. He only had a $1,000 bounty on his head because he'd been so long bucking them all off. And after Michael rode him, he never really had that fire back in him again after that. So yeah, I feel that when you got those young bulls, you need to get them tested or get them rode a bit at the start, because if they go too long, it's quite a shock to the system when they do get rode up.
And then they can just quit it.
Yeah, well,
do you think that him being a scrub bull probably made that he didn't have the heart to keep going?
They don't have those genetics, those bloodlines, back in those days, the only person that really had bred bucking bulls was Speedy back in those days. There might have been a handful of others. There was Laurie Howard and a few were breeding.
And then
a few
probably
Gary had a few down there, but
and Woodall's 55 years of breeding there.
Yeah. So they were a lot further down south for us, so we never really got the opportunity to see many of their bloodlines come up here, unless there was a couple of bigger events, that sort of thing. So for up in this area here, unless you bought some Speedies, you pretty much had to breed your own.
And they're all mad too.
Yeah.
Speedies.
We used to go down do the NRA shows, and Johnson Brothers had a bunch of Speedies there, and they were big and hot, and they're big wild bulls,
And you're telling me about when you first bought some cows, how hard it was to get bred stuff.
Yeah.
Like now we're spoiled, like Wallace's sale and different stuff like that. You can skip 20 years of ginning around trying to breed something and get great genetics, and because back in the day they never used to sell off,
That's right.
People kept it very tight.
That's right.
They'll dog them before they sold their genetics off.
Yeah. When I first started, I had about 30 odd cows, and a lot of those were scrubber cows or just good looking, coloured cows are good types of rodeo cows, which I thought they were at the time. I was only a young fella having a go, and we bred about probably 20 bull calves this one year, and we got them all up to sort of big enough to get on, we out of that 20, we probably had 2 that actually worked, so after that I just said to myself, no. So I spent a lot of money there for quite a few years purchasing bred cows, or what I was trying to get as best genetics as I could get during that time, and that really helped to change my program. And then we bred from our best bulls every year, which really helped. We we had anywhere up to 100 bulls running around each time, you know. So we'd pick out the best 2 or 3 every year and breed them to the cows. And after sort of 5, 6 years of that, you know, we had some pretty good bloodlines there. And then you see a lot of the American genetics started to creep in then and come in when they imported Just Dandy, and started seeing a few straws here and there. So we tried to utilise as much of that as we could.
And who was probably the, because everything in Australia like that is bred runs back to Little Yellow Jacket. A lot of it does.
There was yellow jacket straws coming in around the place.
And that was the first sort of big straws come in? Or?
When Just Dandy first come into the area, you know, a lot of people were purchasing Dandy straws or trying to get a hold of those bloodlines, you know, and they imported the whole bull. Yeah, he was the first one.
Tell us about
only that I know of. Yeah. The 3 of them sort of all got together and they imported that bull. They, from what I believe, they had a couple of bulls in quarantine over there, and he was the only one that come through the quarantine process, and they imported him. And then everyone was very keen to get those genetics at the start. It took a few years for those genetics to sort of start flowing out through all the contractors, but I find it's been a great benefit to rodeo here in Australia. And then people had cows and had a few bulls, you know, by Dandy. And then when the semen started coming in, that, you know, like Little Yellow Jackets and those other ones, and that really opened it all up and got the doors, you know, got it all flowing.
And it's amazing now, like the work MJ and a lot of other people have been doing, importing more semen. Like the year he won his world title, we had his semen in Australia.
Yeah, that's right.
Like Rod and Solo, that's amazing. Like that we can keep up with them because it's coming straight away.
Yeah, no, that's right.
That's a credit to Mitch James and team there that important. And there's a lot of other guys that I've missed that are importing semen and doing good things.
Yeah. No, we've got some access to some of the best semen coming in here, you know. So, and it's starting to show in the quality of the bulls too. Like I went to the ABBI the other day, you know, just down the road from here. Some of those young bulls that were bucking are exceptional, great. You know.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see.
And a lot of people in Australia probably don't realise that it's cheaper to buy riding solo straws in Australia than it is in America.
Yeah, no, I believe so.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Well, we just did 15 cows the other day to 10 riding solos, and then we used 5 of the Vortex, you know. So, I got to see Bruiser a bit over there when I was at Pages before he died, and I used to love that little bull, the way he bucked them. So I thought I'd try and cross a bit of that genetics through my head.
And Heart of a Lion too. Like he got rode. Not a lot at the start, but near the end of his career, they were sticking on him a fair bit.
Yeah.
And he would still show up every weekend. And what he won, PBR title, PRCA title.
Yeah.
Just, I guess you want them genetics because you want that's got a heart.
Yeah.
Like they'll keep going.
Yeah.
Like even if they're getting rode.
Yeah. I'm still a big supporter of the Australian genetics too. I think we've had a lot of great bulls here, you know, and I try and still utilise a lot of that through the herd too. You know, I love the American genetics, but cost-wise for me, when I'm breeding these bulls now and selling them, you know, I've just got to make sure that I don't extend myself and spend too much purchasing all the semen. And, you know, like when you AI those cows, you know, you might only get anywhere from 50 to 70% success rate, you know. So,
yeah, well, 70%'s a really good program.
Yeah, you know, so you start losing a few of those $500 straws.
That's
right. And then same with the embryo programs too. You know, I know quite a few people having good success with the embryo programs, but I've done about 3 embryo programs and haven't had that much success with them. So, but when they do, you know, they get some really good genetics coming through it.
And that's the only way we can get 100% American calf on the ground in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. So, I just like, I still like a lot of those old Australian bloodlines, you know. Some of the old speedies, you know, I find now that I've still got a few of my man-eater straws there and that, and I like to cross those over those American genetic heifers that I've got now, you know. So the speedies got, towards the end I felt that they got too wild, you know, too hot, you know. So when they started out crossing a little bit of other stuff into them, I felt that that really made them, good bulls in the end and brought them back to what we want. So
yeah, it's there's some great blood in Australia, even without the American genetics.
You take old Happy Gill with all those bulls that he bred for many years. You know, he probably only bred about 10 calves a year, but those 10 always bucked. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, Jason and them always used to tell me, you know, that they didn't matter what their heifers were by or what those calves were by. If they didn't buck, they weren't used in the program again on the
Wow.
line, you know. So,
Also, the buck the heifers.
yeah, they used to buck everything like, well, they used to tell me they used to buck everything like that. And, you know, it didn't matter if they were by Bambi or whatever. If it didn't perform, then it wasn't getting used again, you know. You see the caliber of the bulls that they show up with nowadays, you know. They're
Yeah.
very good.
Good, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And what's some of your favourite sort of Australian genetics that you've tried to get your hands on and it's helped your program?
Well, I don't know. When I was a young fella, we'd go down to those rodeos down south there, and those Johnson brothers had, you know, big, rank, honky, real rodeo type bulls.
Yeah.
You know, they had some big savage buggers, but they had some really good buckers too. You know, so I always tried to find myself some good cows, or you know, those bigger, stouter, speedy cows, and I'd try and get them through my herd. And then I had a lot of bulls, sort of Western Star, and those bulls of mine. You know, they were big, sort of crossbred fellas, big, heavy bone fellas, so a bit, you know, a bit more cool blooded. So I'd try and cross those with the speedy cows, and I felt that worked really well.
And I found you're the first person that had said it to me because, like, obviously I call you and ask you for your advice because I'm just new into the breeding, and you were telling me how you got a lot of that African genetics to get that good blood through them with like tick country and
Yeah, well, I started using the Nguis and a few of the Watusis, you know. See, up here, you know, when it gets dry, those old speedy cows, they'd kill up and die,
Yeah.
you know. And then, you know, some of those softer bloodlines I had, like they'd get covered in the tick and the fly. So I started utilising a bit of that blood throughout my herd, you know, and I felt they were drought resistant, you know, they were insect resistant, you know, and that was sort of some of the genetics I wanted through my herd. I still wanted them to buck and perform. I wanted them to look good and be good looking rodeo bulls, but I also wanted them to be able to handle the conditions that we
Yeah.
have, you know.
yeah, yeah. Until you told me that, I never really thought about it because you're also just about getting bucky bulls, best bull, best bull. But
Yeah.
hey, if you're just focusing on that and not making sure that they've got the blood to handle the country that you live in,
Yeah.
like Victorian bulls don't survive up here very
No.
good. It's just too hard on them.
Well, we used to see a few of you know, those Victorian bulls come up here, you know, and they were you know, they had a bit more hair on them, you know, so they struggled a lot with the
With the
conditions
heat,
up here,
yeah.
you know. So, yeah. So, no, and that's why I don't know. I've always wanted to have good looking rodeo bulls, you know, plenty of colour, you know, plenty of horn, you know, a bit of aggression to them, but you also got to have bulls that are sensible, that you can take to rodeos, that handle, that leave the arena, that do things right these days, you know. So it's a fine line, and yeah, when we got that bloodlines, then we cross this American stuff with them. I find that, you know, the bulls are going leaps and bounds ahead.
And what are sort of the current good bulls that are sort of in the PBR and that you've bred? Well, there was is Hectic Cheese one of the ones?
Hectic Cheese was one of mine that I bred. He was a Margie time calf, and he was out of a cow I call Best Cow. She went back to Just Dandy and the Speedy bloodlines on the mother's side. Forever Young was another one that I bred.
And what was he?
He was another Margie time, and he was out of a cow that come from Gill Brothers bloodlines. So yeah, so I believe went back to Force 10 and a few of their better bulls. So we're fortunate here now that most of these cows around here have got, you know, generations of blood behind them. You know, so that's
You go back 10 generations and there's Buckham Bull.
yeah, that's right. That's what I recommend to people. You know, don't get attached to these cows. You know, breed your calves out of them if they don't buck. You know, turn them over. You know, don't hang on to old Betsy for 4 or 5 years hoping she's going to breed you a calf. You know, there's too many good ones out there these days.
And there was, how do you, when you're buying cows, like, how do you know what a good cow is? Like, they can have the best breeding and then just not produce. Like, what you just have to like the look of them and like their bloodline.
Well, I don't buy that many cows these days. I've still got 70 odd cows up there now, and you know, I buck all my heifers out of those cows, and same thing with them. You know, if those heifers don't really show me something within them first 4 or 5 trips, and I won't use them through my herd. You know.
Yeah, wow.
So,
So it's more on just yeah, see what they produce. Doesn't matter what they look like.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, I still like that rodeo look. That's what when you're taking bulls to a rodeo, that you want the crowd entertained, so you want to have
Big,
big,
buckable.
good looking bulls, high horned, a bit of size to them. The cowboys are getting bigger and stronger these days too, so you need a decent sized bull to carry those cowboys. And if you want to buck them off, you need to have yourself something there that's got a bit of size, bit of speed to it. So
Do you find that the American stuff is pulling our calves and everything smaller?
I do. I find a lot of that semen that we're getting, that they're smaller bulls, stuff that I'm breeding, the AI calves, they're smaller animals. So that's why I try and make sure I outcross them into the bigger cows that
Yeah.
through the herd. So
Yeah, that's what I found. Like, yeah, some of my heifers that I got American are small, eh?
yeah,
But I like the look of a bit beefier cow, a bit like big legs and big thick
yeah,
knees and that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're so dainty. Some of them just thin legged and
yeah.
Mm.
And then you need to have them sensible too these days. Bulls need to be able to stand in the chute. They need to be able to leave the arena. So yeah, gone are the days of having them big old hot muggers that just bloody played up and hung around there for ages. So I had some good bulls over the years that I got rid of just purely because of those reasons.
yeah, their behaviour and that.
Yeah. Well, when you were taking 20 odd bulls to a rodeo and bucking them all twice, if you had that one bull that you had to spend 15 or 20 minutes with every single time, trying to get him sorted out, so you could buck him. Yeah.
Slows the show.
Yeah. And the sport of rodeo these days, with all the eyes on us, with all the eyes looking from outside, we need to have these bulls well educated and well handled, and well trained so that they can just do their job and
Leave the arena and
yeah,
be responsible.
yeah, and don't cause any unwanted attention that the sport doesn't need.
Yeah. And there's you like the dummy and that sort of process with your calves?
Well, I wouldn't say I like the dummy. It's good to be able to buck those younger bulls, but
Just to see what you got.
yeah. But this day and age too, it's so hard to get cowboys, and then it's so expensive to get insurance and stuff like that, to be able to buck those young bulls. So, yeah, I utilise the dummy probably 90% of the time now. So,
Yeah.
once you've got those bulls pretty seasoned with the dummy and they're bucking and standing up good and leaving the arena, then they're not far off being ready to start taking your rodeos, So.
And you do a lot of the ABBI stuff, or you're starting to get into it?
So I enjoy it. I follow it a bit. Haven't been doing as much of it as I'd like, but see, the last probably 4 or 5 years, every crop of bull calves, I virtually sold straight off the cows as weaners,
Yeah.
So I don't really get the opportunity to keep those bulls around me and handle them and get them up to that level. So,
Yeah.
But financially, it's been better off for me just turning those bulls off and selling them, bloody than keeping them around. But I'd like to get a few together again and have a place.
So then ones that we touched on before, Forever Young and Hectic Cheese, what you sold them as weaners?
They were sold off sort of probably 18 months old. They'd been weaned and were just kicking around for a few months.
Had you put much work in them, like
No,
bucking
not
them?
really. Not really. They'd only been up through the chutes a few times. And
Yeah.
when I start those young bulls, the first 2 or 3 times I'll just run them through the chutes, just run them up through the race, get them used to leaving the arena before I even try and put a dummy or anything on them. So I find that's a bit more beneficial to actually getting to see them buck a bit, see
Yeah.
what they've actually got in them.
So Schultz sort of got them going, like put
Yeah.
the work in.
Yeah, they took them down there, purchased them, took them down there and did a lot of work with them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then got them to the stage where they were competing at the PBR. And
Yeah, performing at those events, yeah. So,
You got any good calves on the ground at the moment that you're pretty excited about?
I got a couple there. As I said, sort of the last year's crop I sold off, and they virtually all went except for about 3 or 4 that were in the neighbours. I got back, and I kept a hocus pocus calf there that I quite like. He's out of a gypsy cow, and gypsy is that semen from Canada,
Yeah.
bushwhacker son. So so I quite like him. Just got a couple of other little fellas there. They might make it, they might not. See how they go.
Can you ever tell? Do you know, like, from the first time you buck them, if they're going to make something?
Some I have, yes, yeah, definitely. Some just do it right from day one, but others, it takes them 3 or 4 or 5 trips to work it out. And then some I've had that don't really perform with the dummy, but yet once you stick a rider on them, they change too. So, yeah.
And like I know with seeing Gary McPhee's blood, a lot of them were sort of late maturing buggers.
Yeah,
If they sort of, like he said, the first time he bucked unbroken with the rider, old mate got windburn,
yeah, yeah.
took off across the arena, and
Mm.
then he, like, arguably become one of the better bulls in Australia.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Well,
that.
you see those bulls with a bit more ear on them, you know, they've got a bit more of the Brahman sort of content in them, so they're a bit more late maturing animals, you know. I find those ones I have like that, you know, when I do dummy them, they don't really go as well. It's those little, you know, those little short-eared, little thick-set fellas that seem to fire a bit better with the dummy.
Yeah.
But then vice versa, they seem to burn out a bit quicker with the riders. But the ones with that touch of Brahman content in them, they seem to keep going and turn into better actual rider bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they mightn't start properly bucking until they're 5,
Yeah.
but they'll buck all the way till 10, 11,
Yeah.
and still be really good bulls.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that has a lot to do with the genetics too. Yeah, you see a lot of those bulls with Gary's, you know, they've got a touch of that Brahminy look to them, you know.
And big.
Yeah, and they grow big and they seem to last for a long time.
Mm.
Once he gets them up to that level, they seem to stay in the pen for a long time.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you have much of Gary's blood in your bloodline?
Not as much now, as I said. You know, those bulls were sort of always too far down for us, and then you know, transport and logistics in Australia is ridiculous. You know, you'd love to get those bloodlines up here, but it costs you too much to truck them around. You know, so.
What you're buying the cattle for, it costs you to get them home.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, no, definitely.
And especially, you're pretty spoiled around near too. You just have a lot of good blood kicking around.
Yeah, yeah.
Rocky area and
Well,
central.
that's right. We had quite a few contractors, you know, in those early days. You know, spent a bit of money, you know, and really ramped their pens up. So now they, you know, they're releasing a lot of those genetics, and everyone can sort of get their hands on them, which is really good.
And are you worried with some of the American stuff that when them bulls are maturing probably too quick, like being real good dummy bulls, that they'll continue on, or you think a lot of them will?
Yeah, I guess it just all depends what you want to do, you know. Like, yeah, are you a contractor that wants to, you know, just do the ABBIs and do dummy events, or are you a contractor that, you know, wants to get a pen together and cart them around? So it just all depends which way you want to go with it. I've bred from some American genetics, you know, that I knew were only small bulls that were good dummy bulls, you know, just purely to get some dummy bulls to be able to sell to people. So.
Yeah. And then do you purposely put them in like a larger frame cow than smaller ones just to get a bit of size still in them?
Yeah. Well, you see these bulls bucking in these competitions, you know, they're big and stout, you know. From a judge's perspective, I think it looks better to see those calves, you know, bigger and heavier, really bucking and kicking, you know. So yeah, so I think it's something that everyone needs to do with their herds.
Yeah. And what's moving forward with your breeding? You're still big into it, or you're sort of taking a little back step?
Like I said, we AI'd 20 cows this season. We'll probably sell on those calves once they're all calved out. I purchased the mother to Roid Rage and Ranger the other day off Keeler's.
That was a good buy.
Well, I think so. You know, as I said, I've got 70 cows up there, and I quite like my herd, and I quite like genetics I've got, but I'm just trying to pick the eyes now and try and find a few top-notch cows, you know. And I believe their bloodlines are going to be quite a benefit to my herd. So they've had 2 bull calves now to marginal calls, so I'm pretty excited about those calves. And I don't know.
You'd want to get a heifer off them soon, wouldn't you? While they're still calving.
I'm going to AI those cows again pretty soon, and I'll probably AI them to Hillbilly Deluxe. If they do take, they'll give me either full brothers or sisters to Roid Rage and Ranger. You know?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so whether I keep them or sell them, it'll all just depend who comes along. So.
What are some of your favourite bulls that are kicking around at the moment? Or whether you own them or someone else? Like, because I know you're doing a lot of judging and shoot bossing for the PBR, so you're getting to see a lot of these great animals.
Yeah, no. To be honest, when I go, I don't really know a lot of those bulls down south, and I just watch them buck on the night, and there's some bulls there that I quite like, and some that are just good cowboys bulls. So, yeah, I don't know. I've been around them that long. It's got to be a good bull to catch my eye.
Yeah. And what do you look for when you're judging?
Oh, I just look for kick, speed, the action, whether they turn back right there, whether they go out a few, do they hang in the air, do they change it up midway through the ride, so all those things, you sort of got to account for. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so them pretty coloured buggers, they don't catch your eye more than.
Oh, yes and no, yes and no. So I mainly think that's just for the crowds,
Geez, I reckon one of the prettiest bulls I've ever seen was that Mystery.
Yep.
Yeah. Geez, that was a good looking bugger. It was
Yeah.
a good looking bugger, eh?
Good looking coloured bull, nice big high horns,
And just up and down.
Yeah, yeah.
It is last time I seen him, he didn't have his best day, but when Aaron Clyer rode him at the finals, holy that thing apart.
Yeah, yeah, no. There's so many good bulls getting around these days, and then every day you're seeing new bulls come along, young bulls that are outstanding. You've never heard of them before. Next thing you watch them buck, and they're unreal. Yeah.
So, are you going to continue breeding?
Yeah, we'll keep playing along. Little fella's got a bunch of mini bulls out there, and the kids come out and ride them probably every bloody few weeks. And we keep these couple of bigger bulls around, and he's enjoying that. So we'll have plenty of bulls for sale over the next few years, but we'll also keep a few around. So,
Yeah. And how do people get in contact with you? Just Roundabout Rodeo Company on Facebook?
They can just look us up on Facebook. We usually post anything that we got up for sale on there, but as I said, we've got 70 odd cows there, and everything's for sale for the right money.
yeah, I've had fellas. You got any bulls for sale? I was like, every bull I've got's for sale.
Yeah.
But for the right money, the ones that piss me off, you'll get it probably what they're worth.
Yeah.
The rest of them are twice as much as what they're worth because I don't want to sell them.
Yeah. We spent a lot of years carting bulls around, and the industry's changed quite a lot from those days. So now for me, where I'm happy as is just breeding bulls and selling them. So.
And especially, there's not a better time for someone to get into breeding. How accessible all this blood is now.
That's right.
Like there's such good bloodlines that all the Australian stuff that go back 50 years.
Yeah.
And then all the American stuff coming in, you can get a really well-bred cow or heifer for not a lot of money, really.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, like the amount of time it'll take you to get something up to that level.
Yeah.
You're skipping 20 years.
I know. The amount of hours and time I've spent into my breeding program over the years, and you sell these calves off, quite cheap, really, for what's been put into them. So.
Yeah, and you could get a good little herd, and then even if you're just importing it, or even getting a well-bred bull, it's not a lot of money, really, when you're looking at every other industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like the money's coming in. Bucking bulls in Australia.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect time to get in and buy yourself a little herd because it's cheap for how much work everyone else before you's had to do to get stuff like that.
That's right. And the ABBI are putting on more and more events these days, and the BBA down south, they're running more and more events. So, there's quite an opportunity for people to take these young bulls, and get them some outs and get them shown.
Well, because back when you started breeding, you could only take them to a rodeo.
Well, we only bred just purely to get ourselves enough bloody good quality bucking bulls to be able to take to our events to cart on the truck, So, in those days, there was only a handful of us breeding, and everyone held on to what they had, So if you wanted to get some decent bulls, you either went to the sale barn and bought 10 a week, and you might have got one that lasted 6 months, So we started breeding our own just so that we had better quality bulls to be able to take to the events. Yeah.
And like now with the ABBI and the BBA, you can get 2 or 3 cows and just have fun with them now.
Yeah.
Like fiddle with them, train them, and then you've got an outlet that you don't have to be a contractor or supplying to rodeos.
Yeah.
You can just take these young calves to yearling events and different other events, and then once they get big, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds ready to go to the PBR or wherever, then you can move them on and sell them to a contractor or someone else, and
that's right.
And continue on.
That's right. There's so many sort of experienced contractors and bullmen here now in Australia. They're very knowledgeable. You you can get yourself a lot of information. You know, these blokes are quite approachable. You know, they're willing to help out. You buy a bull or a heifer off them here or there, and they show you a few things and teach you a few things, and it goes a long way. You know, you get 20 years of knowledge. You know,
Yeah.
within a few weeks.
Yeah, it's and the amount of information you can get for nothing.
Yeah.
Just from marks and fellas that you look up to, and that it's awesome. Like when I've been having trouble with anything, I've either called you or Jack Woodall or Gary McPhee. Between sort of them was the guys I've been taking advice off with.
Yeah.
With me breeding.
Yeah.
And like especially Gary, like he's been doing 50 years. Like everything that could have happened with bucking bulls, he knows how to handle it and what to do.
That's what I said at the start. You know, I stuffed a lot of good bulls because I didn't know what I was doing. Just a young fella having a go. But over the years, you start to work out a few things you did right and a few things you did wrong. And then you start to work out a few tricks. And your programs just get better and better as you go.
And would that be advice you'd give to someone that's starting out breeding? Don't hesitate to call people that are doing a great job. And
yeah, no, definitely. You know, watch what those good contractors are doing. You know, and watch those bulls. You know, and then don't be afraid to reach out to these people and ask. You know.
Yeah, because especially if someone bought a couple of cows off you, and then once they're running through, then call you up and what should I do with this, or what do you think the best cross would be with the cows that I've got off you, with knowing the blood so much better than someone purchasing.
Yeah. There's a couple of blokes around here that bought a few cows off me, and they played for quite a few years, and enjoyed it, and they had a great time with those cows, and same thing, they'd ring me up and want to know what semen to cross over these cows, and they'd buy a few straws off me, or they'd go buy a few, and they had a lot of fun with it. So.
And that's what I think's great about it now, is with the dummy events that you can just come and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to have 50 cows or 70 like you do.
Yeah.
And then do it on such a big scale. Just have a little mob and just have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Just a little fiddle and just learn and geez, buying a going bull like a 5-year-old, geez, they're cheap really for how much they sell for.
Yeah.
With the amount of work, time you spend into them bulls to get them to the PBR, it's a credit to all the contractors.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just time, eh? Some of them are just a little touchy or a little fiery, and you've got to really work with them to get them responsible and make sure that they're safe. Because that's the biggest thing. Like, make sure that whoever's getting on him, it's a safe enough animal, is responsible in the shoot, and going to do his job, and then he's also safe that he's able to leave and there's not going to be an incident. The last thing we want is an incident.
Yeah. No, there's so many good bulls getting around, and these good bullmen handle them. That the quality's increased so much quickly. I feel here in Australia it's probably jumped a bit quicker than the riders. We've got a lot of great riders here in Australia, but there's that many good bulls getting around.
And there's that many events on now too.
Yeah.
No wonder the riders, there's not as many of them, especially like in your era.
Yeah.
But there's so many events now that it's getting spread so thin.
Yeah.
There's only so many guys riding bulls.
Yeah, that's right.
Some weekends in Australia there might be 9 events, 10 events on.
Yeah.
All on the same day.
That's right. They're getting on better caliber of bulls at these events, so injuries are popping up here and there. So you're seeing, some riders out quite a bit with injuries, just because they're getting on those better bulls.
Yeah. And you got plagued a lot with your career with injuries?
Yeah, just over the years. I had 2 knee reconstructions and broken jaw, an eye socket, broken arm. I dislocated my shoulder half a dozen times. But just wasn't taking care of myself back in the days,
Yeah. And you like the way the sport's gone now, where there's sort of more athletes?
Yeah, no, there is a lot more athletes, a lot of these kids now, they can make a real living out of this stuff, so they're training and maybe practicing and stuff like that. So
And the opportunities now, like to get over to America, like with the teams, how they're drafting through like Australians into teams over there and getting them in the PBR and in the PRCA, like because we got a wedge of like from saddle bronc to bareback to bull riders and every other rodeo event that are doing extremely well in the States.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Like there wouldn't be a better time for, and geez, it's $1,000,
Mhm.
like return flight to get there. So
Yeah, no, that's right.
she's worth flying over and having a go.
Yeah. That's how these kids apply themselves these days. Yeah, they got the world at their feet.
Mm.
Yeah, they can make a career out of this stuff, you know. So,
Yeah, like what Brady's been over there a couple of years and sort of really cemented himself as one of the top guys in the is it Built for Tough men
in
UTV?
the teams.
Yeah, the teams
yeah.
deal and what he rode Manhatter at
Yeah.
the finals.
Yeah.
And like he's one of them sort of top 20 guys now and
Yeah.
really established himself.
Yeah, well, he's the leader of that team. He's leading there now, and he's their starting man virtually every event, and he sets an example right from the start that those other ones follow. So it's great to see.
When you watch him, he takes the buck out of them, eh?
Yeah,
Like when he just knees up and sort of dominates them and
yeah,
sort of makes really good bulls look a bit easier than what they actually are, I reckon.
no, good.
Do you agree? Or
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, no, good cowboy.
and that's a style like when you're teaching, you sort of like teaching kids to ride similar to that, like
Yeah,
more
yeah.
kneeing up and
Well,
really post them.
make sure you have a bit of knee on them. When them balls hit the ground, you want a bit of knee there to support yourself, and you can get a better position with your legs, better body shape. So, and if you're in that correct position next time they come up underneath you, you're set and ready to go again. So, yeah.
And you still running any schools?
No, we haven't been doing any schools. We want to try and get back and do a few, but it was quite easy back in those days when I had when we had 100 bulls around. We had a lot of suitable stock for the kids.
Yeah.
Kids that come to our schools, and we could match them up with suitable animals. I feel that that's something that you really need to help teach these kids to build their confidence. So yeah.
And mini bulls, you're breeding a few of them?
No,
No.
definitely not.
You're not going to be the new mini bull man?
No, I only keep a few around for the kids that come out home and want to have a play and that
Yeah,
sort of stuff.
but
So, yeah.
you're not cutting them down the rodeos anytime soon?
No, I got enough broken fences and bloody upset neighbours without having them things.
I thought that'd be easy to take care of because they're so little.
Oh no, they just wander under the fences and they don't want to go. So,
And they still get into it. They fight like big bulls.
the little ones I've got at home do, yeah. They're terrorists. Yeah. No, we've got probably half a dozen there that we keep around for the kids. So, I'm a believer in the old steer riding days myself. The mini bulls are great, but I'm more of a believer in the steer ride. Kids used to learn to be able to spur, to sit up and ride, to be able to, those animals, if they didn't perform enough, they could dominate them. They could get a bit of a spur ride going, a bit of a body shape, jump off and land on their feet, stuff like that. So it's good what they're doing, but I quite like the old steers still. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of people are like that. They're sort of, they will find out if it's going to work out.
Yeah.
It hasn't been around long enough knowing if that is the best way to be going.
Yeah.
To make great cowboys because they haven't been doing mini bulls for a long time. So
yeah,
we haven't had a chance to see if that's producing more champions.
Yeah.
Or maybe we need to still mix the both.
Yeah,
have the steers and the mini bulls.
I think to find a happy medium, I think that'd be more beneficial for everyone. Mix it up a bit. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. You see some of these kids, really good riders. Some of them get a good spur ride going on those weaker animals, and that's great to see. Good for the sport. So, it just all depends on the kids, I guess.
Geez, kept you busy doing all the mini bulls judging on the weekend?
Yeah. No. We there was quite a few kids there riding at those events. So, there's always a big roll up in numbers at them. So,
yeah, geez, they get good entries for the mini bulls.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. No.
Like when they have them other sort of like NRAs or pro shows on that and have them, geez, there's a wedge of them.
Yeah.
You get 50 entries for the mini bulls.
The contractors, have got pretty good stock for those kids, suitable, and those kids, they don't get hurt at that event, so they go away and they come back again next week keen, So if you get those kids hurt, they go play soccer or bloody football the next week and you don't see them again.
Yeah, have you seen that hard solo? That little bucker?
Yeah, yeah,
It hurts,
yeah.
eh?
No, he's a bucking dude. That little thing, isn't he?
And they just only have him as a feature, like no one draws him.
Yeah.
And then they tell the kids like it's up to the kids and the parents if you want to get on him, like because it is bucker.
Yeah.
But these kids, and I was there at the show, and he went 6.5 or something on him, like stuck it on him.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I was like, geez, I think that's too much for it as a mini ball.
Yeah.
But these kids want to get on him and was getting after him. And Steve Duggan was like, oh, well, maybe it's not, but it's hard to tell.
Sometimes I feel it just all depends on the level of the kids, you know, and what they want to do.
Yeah.
You know. So
So sort of bulls like that are probably they're too much to have in the draw.
Yeah, yeah.
If just have them as a feature and then they
There,
can choose.
there's probably that top 10% of the kids that might have a shot at him and might want to have a shot at him, but there's probably a lot of those kids that probably aren't suitable or ready for that, whether they think they are or not.
Yeah.
So my dad would never, when we were kids ride, I was going pretty good, I thought, and I was keen, but he'd never let me step up to those next levels, for a while at each sort of age group. I used to get the shits with it, but he was only sort of, I thought I was ready, but I wasn't at the time, so we just got to have good mentors around, good people around to be able to sort of keep an eye on it and judge over it, I think.
Yeah. And you do that with people that you're sort of training and that?
Yeah.
You like them to be patient and
Yeah, quite a bit. We've had a couple of young kids coming out home, and they've been riding at the rodeos, and they were bucking off everything, and they were really timid and scared, they'd just about burst into tears when I'd try and put them on one of these little mini bulls of that, and I'd have to sit them down, have a talk to them, and build their confidence. And we'd put them on those real soft ones for 2 or 3 rides, and next thing they weren't crying, they were quite happy to get up there and have a ride, their confidence was up, and within a couple of months, they're getting on the better ones in the pen, that I've got there for them now, and they're sticking it on them. I'm going to have to try and find some better ones.
Yeah, great.
But it took a progression of probably, 10, 15 rides of me matching those kids up with a suitable stock and building them up to
building their confidence.
Yeah, building their confidence, and because they were getting bucked off a lot, they had terrible body shape, some had their arms down, their body laid back, we'd put them on those basic ones, and we'd run along beside them, yelling at them, get your arm up, get your body shape. And they've progressed now, where they're starting to do quite well. Yeah.
We'll take a little break and then I'll get back in it. Ozcan Rural, providing Southwest Victoria with everything related custom sheep and cattle yards. Get in touch with the fellas via email ozcanrural@gmail.com. That's AUS, can like the one you drink, rural@gmail.com. Building fences straighter than your local politician. So welcome back, Duggan. You've been a big help for me with finding some of these great cowboys up here. You keep sending me numbers of everyone, and last night there was a fellow we met.
Steve.
Yeah,
Steve Gibson. So. No, been a lot of good cowboys come and go through this area over the years, So I first started rodeo, and I guess we started when we were about 12, so I've got to meet a lot of good people through the years.
And that's helped your career, you believe? Like having them idols to look up to? And
Definitely. I used to pick out those cowboys that I really liked, their styles, and try and role model them, and pretty much just follow them around, see what they do,
And them older cowboys that have done it and been there and done it, you got a lot of advice off them?
Yeah, a lot of good knowledge off them. They've been through it all, over the years.
Yeah.
When you're a young bloke starting out, and you're a bit unsure on things, that'd be great ways to find out some information, So.
And so you reckon that kids are probably a bit shy nowadays, like not going out of their way to introduce themselves to them cowboys? And
all depends. That all depends on the kids too.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll get kids come straight up to us and introduce themselves, and so long as the kids are polite and respectful, then I'll go out of my way to try and help them out as much as I can.
So anyone that's starting, like, just have to message the Roundabout Rodeo Company?
Yeah, they can just get onto us and send us a message, drop us a line. We're always bucking bulls out or mucking around doing something. So, one thing, don't be afraid to just jump in and offer a lending hand, A lot of us fellas, older fellas are quite busy in life. We've got plenty going on, so don't be afraid to bloody sing out and lend a hand, and I'm sure we'll return the favour.
Yeah, once you come back in service or that, because well, pretty much everyone in Rocky works in the mines, don't they?
Oh, there's a few.
Yeah.
So,
And that's been the other thing with the podcast, trying to line it up. Everyone's on swing or that. But it's it's been hard for me. I guess a lot of people could relate to it. You got your standouts that even if you're not from that town, you would have heard of them and know them. But there's another 50 good cowboys in every town that you haven't heard of yet, unless someone. And that's what it's been good for me, because I've had you and a few other fellas, and Gav Tickle's been great. He sent me a bunch of numbers of good cowboys up here that I hadn't heard of, but I know all the guys in Victoria, because that's where I rodeo and that. So it's not taking anything away from some of them cowboys. It's just unless someone told me about them, I wouldn't know about it.
Well, the sport changes so quickly. Every generation we've got the younger cowboys coming through. And some drop out. You don't see or hear from them again. They get busy with life. But there's so many good people around. So,
And you think it's like the podcast is good, so then these young fellas can hear and find out these stories, and then maybe they can come up to them and they know, like, oh shit, like Duggan, he's happy to help me. And
no, I love hearing a lot of the older stories on the podcast, from those older blokes, telling the old days, they're great, some of those.
I love some of the old tent show yarns. Jeez, it's that tough men back then. Like Chili that I had on it, his episode's out now, and he used to get on 4 bucking horses 6 nights a week, and they'd have to pull down the tent, drive through the night, set the whole tent up, get on 4 bucking horses, pull the whole tent down, and do it 6 days a week. That's cowboy.
That's right. That's right. They didn't have the modern comforts we have.
No aircon, no nothing.
No, I remember when the Great Western started up here, I think it was around 95, 96, they had the little old wooden arena out at the back, When they'd put on a bull ride, which they sort of started out a few here or there, and they'd just run these bulls in that little tiny arena, and all it was cable with a rosewood top rail, They'd just unload a bunch of scrubbers, and buck them out. So I don't know how many scars I've got on my forehead from where them bulls just took a run straight into that cable fence and banged your head on the top rail. You'd have to ride the second round. You were still half concussed from the first. But all those days, because there was starting to be bull rides here, their handlings were putting them on here quite a bit, and so bulls started getting used to bucking in that arena, and then because there was a few events on, contractors could make a little bit of money out of it, so they started getting bulls that were suitable for that little arena too.
And have you noticed the big difference in just the education and development of the whole sport from like way back then, as you were saying, just wild scrub bulls, to now, like such well-bred and responsible animals?
Like, no, that's right. People put a lot of time, a lot of hours into these animals, to get them up to the levels that they need to be able to be competitive these days.
Because especially now, there's so many good animals all across Australia. From bucking horses to bucking bulls, and then like them troubled sort of animals. Like there's that many good ones that aren't troubled. Then just use them.
I remember one time, Beacon Ballantyne, they brought a semi-load, 40 of these scrubbers on a double, turned up at home there to buck them out. We just had the rodeo in here, the bull ride here that night, so we were all hungover and whatnot, and we all went out there, and here's 40 of these big scrubbers, just big mad buggers here. And so I think there was probably about 7 of us there at the start, and by the time they started running them up in the chutes, 2 of them jumped in the car and drove off, so there was only a couple of us left. We'd get on 6 or 7 of these scrubbers, a day, just to get
and
marked.
Bash you in the chutes.
Some of them, they'd lean over and tip them, as you were just about to take the ropes, the blood would still be spurting on your vest, and you'd take these things out, you know. And, yeah.
We've we're a lot different nowadays.
I remember we had a young fella there, you know, and he turned up and he wanted to ride bulls, and this is on like Sunday Arvo, and we'd all been on about probably, I don't know, 10 or a dozen each by then, you know. And so they had this big white bull there, you know, big white horny bull, good looking bull, and this young fella said, I want to get on him, you know. And he'd had a couple of rides, this bloke. And this thing blew out of the chutes, and it hit him straight in the face, you know, and knocked him out stiff as a board. And this was a big, scrubber first trip, and it's hooking and trying to thrash around. So we just grabbed him by the arms and drug him out of the arena because he was stiff on the ground. And he's got up. He eventually come to, you know, and there's blood everywhere, you know, and he's holding his mouth, and all this blood's running down his shirt. And it hit him that hard in the bottom jaw here that it snapped off all of his top teeth across the top at the gums. And underneath his top gum was all lumps where it pushed the roots of the teeth up through the gum. And the blood, one of his front teeth went down and pierced a hole in under here, and that's where the blood was dripping out down through here, you know. So we just loaded him in the car and took him up to the hospital, you know, and he bled all over the car everywhere and dropped him off. And I seen him probably a few months later, you know, and he's waving to me, hey, Duggo, you know, knocked every tooth clean out of his head, poor bugger.
Did he keep bull riding?
No,
nah, that was it.
That was the end of his career.
There was a similar thing happened to my brother. He fell off his horse, and then his foot got caught, and then it knocked him out, and it was dragging him over the hill rock country. And he must have. The horse was quiet, but because he's getting dragged behind it, it threw him into the back legs, and it's kicked back, natural thing. Kicked him straight in the thing, split his jaw in half, pushed his two front teeth up into his nostril, and was like a meal off killing him because it would have went into his brain. It's amazing, like some of the accidents that can happen.
I've seen some bad wrecks, you know, but back then that was, if you wanted to practice, that was what you did. You went and got on a bunch of scrubbers or just whatever you could get your hands on, you know. So,
See, we were lucky. We don't have a lot of them down our way, so we're a bit spoiled.
Now, for years there, I'd go to the sale, you know, and I'd buy probably, you know, 5 or 6 bulls every week, and we'd bring them straight into the practice nights here, and we'd buck them out, you know. And whatever didn't buck, we'd send back about next week or the week after, you know, and use that money to buy some more and keep turning them over like that. And we got a few good bulls out of them, but you know, I guess we went through a couple of hundred to get that handful of good bulls.
Yeah, wow.
So,
So what's next for Brian Duggan?
no, not much, mate. Just like I said, I still enjoy breeding the bucking bulls and playing around with them, but as my little fella gets older, I'll just see what he enjoys, what he likes to do, and
focus more on what he wants to do.
Yeah, more family orientated. You know, as you get older, you know, priorities change a bit. So I still have a passion for the bucking bulls and the sport. You know, so we'll just play it by ear. I'll always have a few around that I keep going back to, but just never know where you end up these days.
Well, because you're a bit of the camp drafter now, aren't
you? Yeah, we're enjoying the camp draft and just
crossed over
that sort of stuff. Yeah. No, we're having fun doing it, you know. And, but we might try and do a bit of roping again one day and just see where it all goes. So.
And your young fella's real keen on, loves his horses. And
no, he's going good. He's he's learning to canter at the moment and just having fun chasing a few cows around. So while he's enjoying it, you know, then it's all good. So.
Is that a good feeling, like watching him learn and figure it out?
Yeah, no, it is. You know, I spent years teaching everyone else's kids, you know, how to do stuff, and so it's good to be able to teach my little fella. You know?
You reckon that's helped you?
Yeah.
All you teaching other kids is like now it's got to yours. It's like already taught 100 of them, so
made me a lot more patient anyway.
Does your young fella get away with a little bit more than them other kids did?
I think so. Yeah. He's got a bunch of little mates that come out, you know, and he gets up on the back of the chutes and, you know, he passes Dad up the kickers and stuff like that, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You know, so I find these kids, because I was around so many kids for so many years, the ones that start out young and they're pressured to do it, or they're made to ride, by the time they're 14 or 15, I see those same kids, I run into them, and they don't want nothing to do with rodeo.
Yeah.
And I find the kids that their parents just let them come along and just sort of poke along with it, and when they hit their straps, they're quite competitive and they're quite involved with it.
Yeah.
They get right into it.
Yeah, they're not getting burnt out.
Yeah,
Too young.
Yeah. That's one thing I could recommend, to some of the parents, just let your kids enjoy it, and have a good time. Don't make it so competitive. Once they get to that age where they're ready to go, they'll know what they want to do. So, yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you back on. I'm sure in another year's time or something we'll get you back on, see if you've got anything else to talk about.
Let's see if we can come up with something.
Yeah, you have to start making stuff up. It's been an absolute pleasure, Duggo, and thank you very much for taking the time.
No worries, thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.